Good morning, students of class 10. Welcome back to the classes now. Let us continue our history lesson. Making of a global world. We have reached the end portion of 3.1. In our next class, we will do 3.2. 3.1, wartime transformation. In our previous class, we have talked about during the war, modern weapons were used. It was also called the modern industrial war because no other wars were seen like this before. So that's why it was called a modern industrial war. Many machine guns, tanks, aeroplanes and various type of weapons and economic, you can say that chemical weapons were also used, and millions of people were killed. Almost 9 million people were killed and 20 million people were almost injured, and seriously injured, became handicapped throughout their life. So we can see that, and most of the killed and maimed became seriously injured, handicapped throughout their life. They were men of working age. They were men of working age. And after the war, the income of the house declined because most of the working age people, they were killed. And during the war also, the ladies had to take over the jobs which were done earlier by men. Now here we will continue. There are 5 points here. Household income declined. Decline means came down after the war. After the war, when the war ended in 1918, the war came to an end. There were very less people of working age. Most of them were killed. Those who are not killed survived. They were handicapped throughout their life. They cannot work. They were so seriously injured. So the household income declined after the war. During the war time, during war, industries produce war-related goods. They were building ammunitions, bombs, aircraft, machineries, guns, tanks. They were making in them industries. The industry was restructured. The industry were made in such a way that they could produce war-related goods. So, and as men of working age, as men went to war, women took over the jobs of men. We have talked about in our previous class. The women had to work in factories producing goods, war-related materials such as guns, tanks, everything. We have talked about their lifestyle changed. Previously, women used to do household work. Now they are working in the industries, they are working in the field. All sorts of work they have to do instead of men, because men went to war, went into the battle. The war led to the snapping means breaking, of economic links, connection between economic powers, great economic powers such as America, Russia, France, Germany, Australia, Canada. They were economic powers. They had a lot of money. Even Britain. The war devastated everything. Their economy has gone down. They had no money. They had to borrow the money and war-related materials from America. So the war led to the snapping, means breaking of economic links between the rich countries. You can say that economic power means rich countries which were now fighting each other to pay them. Now they had to pay the money which was borrowed by them from America. European countries were fighting, and during the war they had to borrow money in order to sustain or in order to keep on fighting. They had to borrow machineries, they had to borrow ammunitions from America, and after the war they have to pay, and they were unable to pay. because everything, all the infrastructure, all the industries were destroyed, even the agricultural field were bombarded, and it was not fit for growing crops. They had no money, so they were fighting each other to pay them, pay the money which they borrowed during the wartime. Britain borrowed large sums of money from USA. Britain borrowed a huge amount of money from America in order to carry on the war, as well as from American people. Not only the governments, American people also provided money. So when the war ended, when the British government could not repay or pay back the loan or the borrowed money, when they could not pay them, so what happened, the American government and the American people, they took over the land, property. All the property was confiscated. They had to sell their houses, they had to sell their land in order to pay the property. Those who could not pay, their lands were taken away, their property were taken away. By whom? By American government or American people, who supported them with money during the war. So at the end of the war, when the war ended during 1918, the USA and its citizens owned means they had more overseas assets. Overseas means in other countries. American people, they owned property in other countries. Why? Because once they lent the money, and now they could not pay. Now they took over the land, they took over the property or the houses or the cars, whatever it is. So they owned more overseas assets. Asset means property, than foreign governments and citizens owned in USA. Suppose the American people, they gave the money during wartime and they took over the land. These American people have more assets or property in foreign countries, whereas the foreigners have very less property in America. This means the foreign countries or governments, they own less in USA than the people of America and USA government owned outside. Foreigners' properties, other countries' properties were less in America, but American people and the government, they have more property outside, around the world, especially in European countries, because they lent the money. Those countries, they borrowed the money, now they could not pay back, they took over the land, property. So they own more assets overseas than the foreigners in America. So that is the wartime transformation. Everything has transformed. Social life, economic life, everything has changed. Now in our next class we'll talk about 3.2, post means after war recovery. Recovery means to come back to the old situation, previous situation, how to recover. It took a long time for them to recover. Since they had no money, they borrowed money from America. Most of the governments around the European countries, they could not pay back. Even the American government find it very difficult to run the American government, because they have lent all the money and they are not paying back. Most of the banks were closed. So a lot of problem created even in America. They have overseas assets, land, property, but no money. So in order to run the government, American government, they require money. So a problem created, because other countries, European countries, could not pay them in time. So now we'll have post-war recovery. Post means after. After the war, how the recovery was made. We'll talk about that. Was it easy? No, it wasn't easy. It was very, very difficult. We'll see about it. We'll study about it. It's quite interesting there. So, you go through your book. You can read this out. I hope you are studying properly at home. should not waste your time. Be wise enough to use your time properly. I have provided you the questions. You answer, go through the online portal and answer them all. I will collect all the copies. The copies will be collected, evaluated, and it will be seen. Let's see how many of you can do it. Because you go through the online portal, all the answers are there. But if you do not go through it, or if you don't have the book, you will have difficulties. And you need to do it. I will collect it. So that's all for today. We'll meet in the next class and continue our lesson in this post-war recovery. And stay safe at home and carry on your studies. We'll meet in the next class. Thank you very much for watching the video. That's all.